In 2002, we all wondered what happened to Elizabeth Smart. The 14-year-old from Utah was abducted from her bed in the middle of the night and was found 9 months later. The couple who kidnapped her were later sent to prison. Smart speaks in Calgary May 8th in support of Little Warriors, an organization that provides therapy to children and teens who have experienced sexual abuse. Joining me are Elizabeth Smart and Wanda Polson-Holman, the CEO of Little Warriors. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Elizabeth, I'll start with you. What you experienced was so incredibly traumatic. Why do you think it's important that you keep speaking about what happened to you?
Although my story does sound extremely dramatic, it is not that different from what so many other survivors experience every single day. The emotions are the same, a lot of the actions are the same, and it can be so devastating because unfortunately we see that much of the abuse that happens comes from the very people who should be protecting you, who should be the ones loving you, guarding you from this kind of thing happening. So I feel like it's very important for me to share my story because these crimes, because they are crimes, can feel so isolating, can make you feel so alone, can make you feel so powerless. I think it is really such a comfort to know that someone else out there understands what you're going through and that you're not alone and you don't have to be ashamed of what's happened to you.
You're a mom now. You appear to have a very happy life. You're married and living in Utah. Tell me, how have you related to your children any differently than, say, other moms in the neighborhood?
Well, one of the best pieces of parenting advice I've ever been given was when someone told me the best time to start talking to your children is when they start asking questions. And I know it's really easy to be like, oh my goodness, that is a really big, scary topic. Let's talk about it when you're older. And quite frankly, my kids started asking me questions well before I was ready for it. I mean, much earlier than I ever imagined they'd begin to ask questions. But there is an age-appropriate way to begin speaking to them. I mean, for instance, with my own story, they started asking me what happened to me, why I was gone, why people cared what I had to say, because they certainly don't. And they started asking those questions. And I was really nervous to talk to them about what happened because I didn't want them to be scared to go to bed at night. I didn't want them to be scared of going to school. I didn't want them to be scared. I just didn't want them to live in fear. But I ended up really speaking to them on a basic level because my oldest was about 3 years old when she started asking me questions. And that was terrifying for me. But I started it on a very basic level. And then as they have grown, I have allowed that conversation to grow. And it brings up things like, I don't allow sleepovers. I'm not comfortable with them having sleepovers. And then we have to have the whole discussion why I'm not okay with them having sleepovers. Usually they just roll their eyes at me and they're just like, oh, mom. But it's really important to keep them safe. And I have to remind them that is my job, to keep them safe.
Wanda, how does Elizabeth's story relate to the work of Little Warriors?
Well, I think the things that Elizabeth is sharing today are so important. All of the things that she's talking about are part of our Prevent It program. We have an online free Prevent It program for this very reason, to inform adults about sort of the myths around child sexual abuse and how to ensure safety for their child or for children that they are with or working with. And to Elizabeth's point, we also have our Be Brave Ranch. And I think when children and teens and families are given the resources and supports that they need after they've experienced a traumatic event, there's so much resilience. And obviously, Elizabeth is such an amazing example of that.
And Elizabeth, you do appear to be so healthy, so well-adjusted. How did you achieve that, given what you had experienced at the age of 14?
I would say there's been a number of things that have been so helpful. I feel incredibly fortunate in that nobody ever doubted my story. I've met far too many survivors who the first words out of their mouth were, I tried to share my story, but nobody believed me. Or when I did share my story, people said I was lying. And I think because I was always believed, there was never any doubt, that what had happened to me had happened to me, that allowed me to move on to some of the next steps in my healing. I had an incredibly supportive family around me, which brings me back to when children experience sexual violence within the family. That is a betrayal that is so deep. You know, the people who should be protecting you are the ones abusing you. That is going to be a huge chasm to get past. Learning to trust people again, finding your family, because unfortunately, not all biologically related people are family members. Family members are the one that support you through everything, that show up for you whenever you need them, that love you, that are there for you day in and day out. So finding your support network is important. You know, pursuing connection fearlessly, not being left alone, not feeling like nobody else could possibly understand you. All of these I feel like are incredibly important steps in healing, and they certainly were very important steps in my life. And then just being given the freedom to make choices again, pursue my dreams, pursue my goals, setting goals again, finding the things that bring me joy and happiness in life. I think these are all very incredibly important steps to take in life.
You do appear to have such an incredibly supportive family. What was it like when you were finally reunited with your 5 siblings and your parents? And I believe at the time you had turned 15, right?
Yes, I was 15 when I was rescued. And although I would say the day started out as a roller coaster, it ended as one of the happiest days of my life. I genuinely felt like everything that had been taken away from me had all of a sudden been given back. And I didn't want to miss out on anything ever again moving forward. I felt like all the opportunities that had been taken away from me, I mean, going to high school, going to college, getting my driver's license, going to like my first dance, all of those things that had been taken away from me, that given back to me. And I wanted to live my very best life as much as possible.
You were abducted by a husband and wife couple. He is still in prison and will be there for the rest of his life. It does bring to mind the case of Jeffrey Epstein, who was aided by Ghislaine Maxwell. You must have some thoughts on that.
When I was kidnapped at knife point in the middle of the night by just the man, Brian Mitchell. And I was taken up to the mountains. And when he eventually told me that his wife was there waiting for us, honestly, I felt a sense of relief, because I remember thinking that if there was a woman there, then nothing truly terrible could happen to me. So then when I look at the Epstein case and I know about Ghislaine Maxwell's involvement, it just makes me so angry and sick to my stomach that another woman could betray girls, young women, in the manner that she did. I mean, we all need each other. We've all, to some degree, been sexually harassed or been wolf whistled at or been put in a situation where we feel uncomfortable. And just to know that she not only allowed it to happen, but she willingly facilitated that, I personally hold her equally responsible for what happened as Jeffrey Epstein.
Many of Epstein's victims were your age. They're adults now. Have you met with any of them? Do you have a message for them?
I have not personally met with them. I certainly have watched in awe as just one after another has come forward, found the courage to speak. I feel like I'm their number one fan, their number one cheerleader, because it does take an immense amount of courage to speak out. And you do face a lot of people who doubt you, who question you. They look at you, they judge you just based on your appearance. Do you look innocent or do you look provocative? Do you look like you were just a child, or do you look like you were asking for it? Were you 17? Because if you're 17, that's basically an adult. I mean, all of these different things people really look at, and victims already feel like a deep sense of guilt and shame around what's happened, even though it's never been their fault for a second. And so to have that public scrutiny is horrific. And so I just want them to know, I think they are heroes. I think they are so courageous for speaking up. And for them to speak up, not only are they making a difference in their own lives and in this case in particular, but they're helping other victims know that they're not alone. They're helping other victims know that it's not their fault. They don't have to be ashamed about what's happened to them, that they too can move forward with their life.
Wanda, tell us about Little Warriors and the Be Brave Ranch. There must be some incredible success stories of people who've dealt with so much who've come out like Elizabeth, successful and happy.
Yeah, absolutely. We work very closely with the Research and Scientific Council, and we measure our outcomes. And we indeed are able to show that with the proper supports, the proper interventions, that children and families definitely move on in a really resilient way. As Elizabeth mentioned, there's a reason why we're called Little Warriors. We very similarly believe that when children and teens come forward, when families come forward, similar to what is happening within the Epstein files, they are warriors indeed. And our warriors, when they come to Little Warriors, definitely change their trajectories of their lives.
It must break your heart when these young girls come into your program, understanding what they've dealt with.
Well, I think that our staff, yes, we hear some horrific stories. There's no doubt about that. But what our focus is on the hope and healing, because we know that these children, these teens, and it's not just girls. We actually support boys as well as teenage boys as well. And so we know that with the proper supports that they will have a very successful life moving forward, and that's what our focus is on.
All right. Thank you very much for speaking with us today. Elizabeth, enjoy your trip to Alberta.
Thank you. I'm so looking forward to it.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to it too.
All right.
Thank you.
And Elizabeth Smart is the keynote speaker May 8th in Calgary, May 6th in Edmonton for the Be Brave Luncheons supporting Little Warriors.